Phantom Liberty is the first and only DLC expansion to 2020's Cyberpunk 2077, pitched as a spy thriller-themed expansion set in a new area of Night City known as Dogtown. This DLC was CDPR's biggest chance to show that they still cared about the quality of their properties after the disastrous launch date of the base game. So Chumbas, is it preem or is this another piece of corpo trash? Content-wise, changes include a new relic skill tree, missions that involve vehicular combat, a new district with a number of new gigs and side quests, a large number of new guns and other fun toys to play with, and new storyline missions that will start with you saving the president and potentially ends with you finding a cure to the relic implant that is slowly killing you. There's a lot of content here, even if you don't plan on doing the main quest, and as someone who is very cold on the base game's release years and years ago, I enjoyed my time with this DLC, and along with the 2.0 patch changes, it's a good addition to the base game and I think a good return to the world of Cyberpunk. Ultimately, Phantom Liberty is still a DLC to the base game of Cyberpunk 2077. Phantom Liberty integrates into the main story, so as long as you've completed up to the Voodoo Boys missions, you can bring your character right in and just start inside Dogtown. Alternatively, there is an option to skip to the beginning of the DLC with the appropriate base games completed, so you can jump right in if you're just interested in experiencing that content. Since it is meant to integrate into the main game seamlessly, flow and gameplay loop doesn't change much whenever you go into Dogtown. But there's a little bit more emphasis on skulking in the shadows than the usual fare, since most of your operations are clandestine in nature. Freeform sections, however, still let you approach and solve problems in your own way, but because this is a spy-themed expansion, stealth and netrunner builds seem to be a bit more appropriate and feel a little bit more in keeping with the spirit of the DLC. With that said, sequences where spycraft and subterfuge are 100% necessary are much more linear, and the game will give you the tools and guidance you need to be able to get through them no matter what kind of build you're using. So feel free to mix and match your skills and gear, and the game will tell you and handhold you a little bit whenever you get to those sections. I couldn't sort out which pieces of gear, clothing, and cyberware were brought with the DLC and what was already present in the base game, especially with the 2.0 patch that was released not long before Phantom Liberty released. But one addition that is definitely linked with the DLC is the new relic skill tree that is unlocked by doing the opening missions of Phantom Liberty. This tree advances differently than the rest of the skill trees, in that it is linked to finding and interacting with a number of terminals around Dogtown, as well as getting some free points by progressing the Phantom Liberty quest chain. This skill tree is somewhat light, but focused on improving your cyberware arsenal, shooting ability, and giving you a short duration cloak a la Arbiter from Halo. The DLC gives you enough skill points both through finding all of the terminals as well as completing enough of the DLC quest chain that you can max out the entirety of the tree, and the points are not shared with any of the other previous skill trees, so feel free to spend as you please. Overall, the skill tree feels a little small. There's only 9 nodes, but the nodes feel impactful, which lines up with the skill tree revamp that came in the 2.0 patch. Each of the 3-point nodes provide large changes, and the smaller 1-point nodes are less impactful. But since you can claim all of the nodes, it gives you some freedom in experimenting with what feels best. With that said, I would have liked to see this tree be a little bit beefier. While the existing skills are a good start, I feel like it could have added some extra large nodes like ones that are focused for vehicles, and more nodes that are focused on net running. Challenge-wise, I didn't have too many problems with any of the encounters, provided that I wasn't being extremely gung-ho. As long as I used my resources, like grenades and stims, accordingly, most enemies did not feel too bullet spongy unless I was using a very low tier piece of gear. And on top of that, gear upgrades come pretty quickly. Overall, Dogtown offers the same sort of playground that the rest of Night City provides. There are even some dynamic events like the red flare drops. These can give you a nice freeform problem to solve, and they'll have some pretty good rewards in the caches after you eliminate all the enemies and complete a light hacking minigame. There's a decent amount to do here, even if you're not going to progress the main storyline. A nice cherry on top is that it's not mandatory at all to progress. There's some missions that will lock you to an area just to complete that sequence. But if you're not interested in progressing the Phantom Liberty chains, you're free to come and go as you please and do other things inside of Night City. So the base premise of you being involved in the story is that the president's plane comes crashing down in Dogtown, and you're recruited by Song Mi, a netrunner who works for a faction that is the NUSA's version of the CIA. The plan set by Song Mi quickly goes south, and you are given the task of both getting the president to safety, as well as establishing contact with FIA agents in order to help Song Mi. Full disclosure, I'm a sucker for the tropes that spy fiction uses, and that's exactly what Phantom Liberty uses as its framework for the story. The primary cast here are riddled with spy thriller tropes. Solomon Reed, the grizzled and cynical veteran spy that just wants to do right by his country and protege, but has a troubled history with both. Alex, the one that just wants to retire to a nice vacation home. Song Mi, the protege who is trying to find their way out of their situation, Myers, the suspicious political figure who has at face value seems to be okay. The cast of characters goes on in their tropes, but they're all pretty memorable and feel like they're well written for the story that the questline is trying to deliver. Johnny Silverhand also makes frequent appearances in this expansion, with Keanu Reeves again reprising the role. He has lots and lots and lots to say on the nature of being a spy for the FIA, as well as revealing more about his backstory as being a soldier in the military. Reed and Song-mi are definitely the standouts in terms of characters. One of the hallmarks I've found of having a good experience with the game's story and conflict is that when I am presented with a decision, I think about the outcomes not just in terms of the rewards, but also how that changes my interactions with the characters going forward. There are a number of decisions that the game had me make that I confess made me think twice. I didn't care about the rewards, but I really could see where either character was coming from in terms of viewpoints and wanted to see where either road would take me. This has the consequence, of course, me wanting to reload the saves that I had before those decisions to see what could have been, which is again a hallmark of an engaging story and honestly a hallmark of a good game. Something that this DLC provides that is a little different than what I'm used to is that Phantom Liberty can be played as a way to get through the overarching story of Cyberpunk 2077, with the choices that you make inside of the quest line ending in a way that provides a quote-unquote solution to the relic chip that is slowly killing you, and actually serves as a way for you to end the story of V. I can't say if it's as comparable to the endings of the base game. I'm still working on that. But I can say that my ending subverted my expectations in a pleasant way, and from the spoiler light reading that I've done, there are enough differences in impact of the choices that you make that does seem to be some room for multiple playthroughs. Or at the very least, load the saves before these choices and figure out if you can scum your way to a new ending. Overall, the questline for the DLC was fun. And while maybe the twists and turns may be a little bit more predictable for a more discerning eye, the character interactions and performances by both Idris Elba and Keanu Reeves breathe a lot of life into what could have been pretty rote dialogue and scripting. Cyberpunk 2077 was one of my biggest disappointments of that year. I had a lot of hope that CD Projekt Red would deliver the quality of Witcher 3 with the venerated Cyberpunk IP. Unfortunately, it didn't meet those expectations at the time, and I still have some technical issues with the game that are graphical at best and crash to desktops at worst. But this DLC gave me some amount of faith that they have the capability to have a good next release, and it has at least reinvigorated my desire to give the game a shot again after all of its patches and fixes. The ragtag group of spies feel fleshed out and have good dialogue with your character. Dogtown's environment continues to have the level of detail that made Night City feel real and lived in, and the additional content of the relic tree gives you a nice little way to augment your gameplay styles. I had a lot of fun running around in Dogtown and experiencing the lived-in world that CDPR has crafted, and fortunately, despite there being some technical issues, I still wanted to see more and found myself waiting around to listen to NPCs wandering around in the street or reading text logs that were left around in the environments that I explored. Whether you're a fan of the base game or are looking for a reason to check the game back out again, between the 2.0 patch and the DLC, this is definitely a recommend for me.
Was never gonna let Slaughter live.
So, Songbird, what's up with her?
Got the link back up, we spoke.
The Voodoo
She's
Boys
fine,
are gonna be
mostly.
pissed.
Needs our help, but she's fine, in one piece.
Alright, give me the deets later. Time to Delta V. Just because we got in without dropping bodies doesn't mean they'll wave us goodbye.
Bon voyage, Slaughter.
Holy shit. Well, they were able to work on its mocap probably a little bit more. And I mean, Idris Elba is pretty cool too.
You made a big fucking mistake!
Hey, whoa, chill. Ow, hey. Yeah. Yeah, it's got explosive shot. I don't even like. I think I just found this on like pretty sure I just found this in one of the airdrops from that just like comes down in Dogtown.
We got nowhere to run. That's all of them.